Spider-Man is a character that will always have a special place in my heart. Hell, I've made like 5 videos about the guy on this channel alone, but none of them have had the pleasure of talking about Miles Morales or the fantastic and original story that is Into and Across the Spider-Verse until now. This latest movie was great, a super enjoyable ride that really gave me a lot of things to like. I could spend 20 minutes of this video talking about those positives alone, but it would be repetitive. Everyone on the planet is talking about all the things this movie did really well, and frankly, they've already done a really good job at it, so I won't try to top them. Instead, I'll fill the role of the villain, as we discuss the most prominent flaws in this movie. After all, this channel kinda has a tradition of calling out the plot holes in otherwise incredibly popular Spider-Man movies. Shit, the last time I did it, Sony and Marvel actually fixed my huge flaw in their subsequent sequel, so hell, maybe someone at Sony will see this video and give a shit like they may have the last time. Oh yeah, and spoiler warning for Across the Spider-Verse. So we're gonna start with the biggest flaw in this movie because I know it's a hard sell to get anyone to click on this video and watch to this point. So let's just bite the snake's head off. This movie damn near assassinates the character of Peter Parker. Stop! I know, just let me explain. So the big crux of this movie's whole moral stand is that across the multiverse, there are specific canonical events that are supposed to occur in the lives of every living Spider-Man. Things that simply must occur in order to ensure the fundamental integrity and stability of the dimension they are supposed to take place in. Things like the upside-down kiss with a soul-bound lover, or the death of a loved one who could have been saved had it not been for tragic circumstance. Uncle Ben, Mary Jane, Gwen Stacy, these characters are defined by these quote canon moments. About halfway through the movie, this is revealed to Miles Morales, and after peeking into the future via one of Spot's dimension-defying portals, Miles becomes convinced that his father, the newly christened Chief of Police, is destined to be one of these canonical deaths. And indeed, in many other renditions of Miles' story, this is the case. When confronted with this reality and the understanding that he must let his father die, Miles peers into a sea of faces looking for someone to understand the insanity of what has just been asked of him. Miles knows there has to be some way to change this, to save the lives of not just his innocent father, but every innocent Uncle Ben and Gwen Stacy. And although that sea of faces is composed of hundreds of Peter Parkers, not one of them is willing to, in that moment, try and help him stand up against the cold, hard, and harsh clutches of fate. At best, they reluctantly side with the notion of inevitability. They all basically tell him to let his father die because it's the only way to save his dimension. The only problem with all of this is Peter Parker we're talking about here, man. Peter Parker is a character who is defined by his stubborn insistence to do the right thing no matter the cost. He is the kind of character who lives to defy fate, even if it means he has to die an untimely death, even if it means he has to leave loved ones behind without his protection in the future, even if it means he has to kill himself. Hell, if you watched my video on the Superior Spider-Man, you'll remember that whole arc ends with Doc Ock giving Peter Parker his body back because Peter is this kind of man, a true hero who settles for nothing less. And yet, no Peter Parkers stand with Miles. If you're telling me hundreds upon thousands of Peter Parkers willingly agreed with this notion without at least first trying consistently to find another way, well then, that just don't make no sense, Chief. And sure, maybe all of these Spider-Men are just slightly less heroic or stubborn variants of Spider-Man. Shit, I'm not gonna try to comment on the heroic nature of a fucking popsicle. So maybe they could find themselves siding with Miguel's rationale, but the problem is that this movie goes out of its way to show us Spider-Man we already know and love. Are you telling me the spectacular Spider-Man wouldn't do everything he could to find another way? Are you telling me the Insomniac Spider-Man wouldn't stand up and fight alongside Miles against even a sea of himself to do what was ultimately right and refuse to take the easy way out? He mentors Miles Morales in the games, and their bond has been reinforced time and time again, hence why this next Spider-Man game looks so good, now that Venom has been introduced and is causing tension between these two friends, but I digress. The truth is, if any and all of these Spider-Men really are Peter Parker, then it's a hard sell to believe that any and all of them would sign on to a plan that ensures other Spider-Men have to face the same traumas they did, even whilst they had the power to stop it. Especially when one of them, Miles Morales, a man many of these Spider-Men know, love, and have mentored, is looking to them practically begging for help. And it's not like these Spider-Men are just complacent with Miguel's tactics. They are violently antagonistic towards Miles when he's just trying to save his dad. We already see that there's technology that can, at the very least, prolong the dimensional destruction caused by breaking canon events. That alone would have been enough proof to at least a quarter of Spider-Men that there could be an alternative, but no. No one actually sides with Miles, and I know what you're saying right now. There was at least one Spider-Man who refused to hunt Miles down, and yeah, you're right. Spider-Punk not only refuses, but even incites Miles to rebel against the Spiderocracy. The only problem is, he's like one of the only variants of Spider-Man that isn't Peter Parker. Even Peter B. Parker refuses to stand up for his protege on the issue, and while him and Gwen are very non-violent and genuinely empathetic towards him, neither stopped to take his side when they needed him most. Hence the whole character assassination thing. I loved this movie, but they do my boy Pete dirty by making him the unequivocal obstacle in Miles' way. To me, this whole thing should have boiled into a messy clash with at least half of the Spider-Men taking Miles' side, even if that meant the presumptive end of the world. Spider-Man is stubborn, and if there's even an inkling of belief that he could be not doing enough or standing in the way of saving lives, he would radically shift his positioning. Hell, that's the reason he's the main character in Civil War, and it's part of the reason we all love Spider-Man. He's a hero through thick and thin, no matter what. And it is true that some of the Spider-Men present ultimately decide to join Miles' cause, but still, to say no Peter Parkers would stand with their friend Miles in that moment of crucial action is just not doing the character justice in my eyes. I'll expand on this a bit more towards the end of the video, but for now, that should put a nice cap on this flaw and give you guys plenty to say in the comments. So, without further ado, let's hop into flaw number 2 and 3. But I can't go any further without begging you guys to subscribe. Look, I get it, you get it, we've all been there, no one likes a pause in the video, but just consider that it took me 3 weeks to make this video, and I have very little to show for it save for the little bits of dopamine I get when one of you guys hits the like button or comments. Seriously, it's free, and if you watched to this part of the video, then you are at the very least intrigued in some way, so hook me up here. Deal? Okay, back to the video. So these next 2 flaws aren't huge or anything, and they aren't really game-breaking like the first flaw we mentioned, but they do provide plot holes all the same. And they revolve around both Gwen Stacy and Miles Morales, or more specifically, around their lacking any variance in pretty much this whole movie. For some context, I watched this movie with my dad. He's a very casual superhero movie watcher. He'll catch one every once in a while, but we've always made it a habit to watch every single Spider-Man movie in the theaters when it comes out. When we walked out of the movie theater, he was confused as to why Miles was considered a glitch and not Gwen. Now, while this isn't a plot hole because the movie explains that Miles is a glitch because he was bitten by a spider from another dimension that wasn't his own, it does beg the question, why the hell aren't there any other Spider-Gwen variants? It's just a little weird because there have been a few other variants of her throughout the years, and it would have made Miles' glitch status feel more special. Speaking of which, where are the Miles Morales variants? You're telling me not one single Miles Morales variant has actually joined the League of Spider-Men? I heard people saying that Miles was actually in the movie as one of the characters in the background in one of the suits from the video game, but I didn't see him anywhere, and even if that version of Miles was in the movie, are you for fuck's sake telling me he wouldn't stand with Miles to try and save his own dad? Video game Miles watches his dad die right in front of his eyes. The only difference was he physically didn't have superpowers to help him and was thus powerless. Now that he does have powers, he's just fine with letting himself experience what was the single worst moment of his entire life? And that loops us back nicely into Flaw 1 in a nice little bow. Either he isn't there, in which case it's strange because why wouldn't he be if Insomniac Spider-Man is there, or he is there, and it's then weird that he attacks Miles for trying to save his own father. A nice little delicious plot paradox there for ya. Like I said, these aren't big or anything, I just felt like I'd mention them to use them as a segue to talk about predictions. Like this one, I'm predicting that you're gonna check out my graphic novel Red Hunt, which is live on Kickstarter right now. It's over 140 pages of balls-to-the-wall action and intrigue. And the first issue of the comic is free to read on the Kickstarter, so you don't even have to spend money to get a taste of it. Okay, sorry, this has been a second plug because I'm desperate and shameless. Back to the video. Alright, now that I've laid everything out, I'm gonna tell you what I think's gonna happen in the next movie because the last time I made a video critical of Sony's Spider-Man, they fixed their mistake in the next movie. So I'm gonna get a jump on them this time, and if any of you guys who are subscribed to me work at Sony, then wink wink, I got you, brother. So this Spider-Verse movie ended in a cliffhanger, with Miles being captured by a seemingly evil version of himself, and Gwen rallying the Spider Troops to finally do the right thing. In the next movie, I'm thinking Miles is going to ultimately thwart Spot from killing his father with the help of his spider friends, and maybe even his own evil version. We might even get to see Miguel team up with the Spot to try and make sure Miles' dad dies, to really set up a tragic clash because ultimately, they're on the same side. It is my belief that Spot will fail to kill Miles' dad, subverting this canon moment. And I'ma guess he's not gonna react nicely, probably by attempting to do something cataclysmic. A sort of, if I can't kill your dad, I'll just kill everyone kind of move. Maybe he opens up a portal to every dimension that has a Spider-Man and brings every single Spider-Man villain to help him destroy the world. At which point, every single Peter Parker in the Spider-Verse will finally realize how on the wrong side they have been, either because they've been helping Miguel or because they've not been helping Miles, and they'll join the fight to help Miles defeat the sea of their shared villains. Throw in some Gwen Stacy variants and some Miles Morales variants, and for the most part, many of the flaws I pointed out in this video are rendered moot. Not all of them, as I still think it's BS that no Peters helped Miles in this movie, but it would certainly help to staunch the blood loss caused by the dagger planted in Spider-Man's metaphorical side by his actions in this movie. But hey man, that's just a theory, and I'm not a Hollywood writer or an executive at Sony or even a big-time YouTuber, so Lord knows I might just be talking out of my ass. However, if you watched this video all the way to this point and you think I'm full of it, why don't you go ahead and read my comics and criticize them? That ought to show me, right? Like I said before, we've got a Kickstarter currently running, but if Wild West gunslinging monster hunters isn't your speed, I've written a manga series set in a fantasy fiction world filled with bright magic and even brighter characters, and hardcore battle comics featuring stone-skinned warriors and the mystical goddesses who vie with them for power. Links are in the description, and all of this stuff is free to read, so please do not be shy. Every single comment I get on Webtoon or Kickstarter quite literally changes my life for the better and increases the chances of reaching out to more people. So even if you don't really care about my comics, if you at all care about this channel and these videos, please swing by and drop a like and a comment. Okay, this video's already long enough. This has been another critical take of a Sony movie by yours truly, So Good, out.